Hello, YouTube. All right, this is kind of a vent session because I'm frustrated and exhausted. The other day, I ended up giving away the RV Good Enough and everything on it. In it, well, not in it. I got to get my stuff out of there still. But I'll try to summarize what happened. I don't know if you guys recall, about a year and a half or so ago, I was living in the RV scrapyard. And it wasn't the most ideal situation. I had people there who were essentially homeless if they didn't have a place to, rent that was affordable. And the scrapyard owner, the RV scrapyard owner, had a bunch of RVs he was renting out. Well, I ended up getting out of there because of all the drama and crazy stuff and damage that was occurring to my RV. And, I had made the escape plan by staying there. I was renting it, just a spot to park and water and electric for $500 a month. But it was really bad. It's not like you think, oh, you got electricity up. It was, think RV scrapyard. It's a junkyard, and there's people there doing drugs and loud noise and crazy stuff. So I was glad to get out of there, but I stayed there long enough to try to save up enough money, and eventually bought my house through the county tax deed auction, and bought the house, saved some money, borrowed a bunch of money, which I've completely paid off now, but ended up buying a house that was less than ideal and fixed it up, and that's where I'm living right now. Anyhow, the RV had been moved there and was parked in the backyard where, I was kind of living in it while I was working on the house, so that worked out pretty well. And I acquired the RV through Craigslist. I had bought the RV initially for, I think, about $2,000. I think I paid $2,000 for the RV, but it was in really bad shape. Engine was okay, but transmission was going out, and the whole interior was all bad. It was all ripped up and torn up. So if you've been with the channel, then not this channel, but the Living in a Van channel, then you saw my renovation videos, which I may run on here, where I took the RV, which was essentially trashed, and turned it into a livable space. And then I bought a solar panel, charge controllers, and batteries. Spent roughly $2,000 on all that system. Now, all this was made possible through the viewers of Living in a Van. Some very generous people stepped up. I won't name full names on the people that don't want to be named, but I think they should get credit. One of the biggest contributors was actually Connie, who is a silent, kind, what I call one of the Earth Angels. And she contributed, just so you know the value of what was given to me, a stranger to her really, other than, a YouTuber that she watched. And she was kind of watching the struggle. Because when you're homeless and, very limited finances and stuff, things just go from bad to worse to worse to worse. And if you don't qualify for services, and even if you did, you might not get them. The city, the state, and county, whatever, it takes forever. But anyhow, you fall deeper and deeper into the pit of homelessness and helplessness. So anyhow, some viewers, especially Connie, when she saw that I got the RV, and even before I got the RV, one of the viewers on the Living in a Van channel suggested a fundraiser, and we were able to raise, I think, approximately, I don't know if it was $800 or $1,200 towards a home for Denoy. So the viewers on my channel raised I'm going to say 1,200, but I think it might have been more like 800. But anyhow, everybody chipped in, got me the 800, 1,200. It helped me to buy stuff like the, the battery banks and the solar panels and the charge controllers and all that other stuff, which was $2,000 by itself. And then, the issue of parking the RV became a problem, because just parking it for storage, which would mean it would be useless, was about $100 to $150 a month. Parking it in an RV park, okay, could run as low as $400 or $500 a month if you're in the middle of nowhere, like far away from where I need to be, where I work and my kids are and stuff. So in this area, in Brevard County, I think the average cost to park an RV, if you have like hookups and stuff like water and electric and stuff, is normally roughly about $650 to $1,200 to $1,800, depending on how fancy you get, per month. Yeah, that's not renting an apartment or anything. That's renting a spot to park your RV. So lot rent, is about, let's say, an average of about $900 or so. And if you go cheaper, the cheapest that I've seen and did go for was the county. So the county has campgrounds. Brevard County has several, like 2 or 3 that you could park at. And they cost anywhere from $600, roughly like $580, to $700, $690 or something like that a month. And what you get is a nice area, because it's a nice campground and stuff. And it's the cheapest campground because it's run by the county. But there's also the rules and stipulations. Like, you can't stay at one place more than 6 months. So if you had it reserved, you could only stay 6 months, then you got to move to another campground. And while you're at that campground, you have to move your vehicle every month. So you can't stay more than 30 days in one spot. So if you're in one campground, you got to, for half a year, you got to move 6 times. And then you got to move to a completely different campground. So I actually did that for about a year. And it was expensive for me because, I was only working as a temp employee at a temp agency. And they were paying on average, about $10 an hour. And child support was taking about $7 or $8 out of that. So that left me about $2 or $3 per hour that I was actually earning, that I could apply towards food, gas, and housing expenses. And that's why I was living in a van. I couldn't afford anything else. But anyhow, viewers chipped in. Connie essentially, spent a huge amount. I'm going to go ahead and say it, but I think she spent more than $10,000, out of pocket, her pocket, to help me pay for the repairs on the RV, buy me a bed. Well, she didn't buy the bed, but gave me money to buy a bed and other stuff to fix the RV, because she was kind and, just wanted to help out. I don't think Connie's a rich millionaire or anything like that. Just a kind person who decided to dig in her pockets to help me out. And, everything I do, now, with all that help and stuff, I pass forward, or I pay forward all the kindness that was given to me by Connie and other people. There were many others that contributed, so many I can't even name them, off the top of my head. Like, I told you the rent was like $600-700 a month. I didn't have money, I did save up some, but it was all used up. Like, if I got lucky, I managed to save $200 or $300 a month. But, that didn't even cover 1 month's rent. So Timothy Mo Bang for Your Bucks stepped in and ended up paying for like more than half my rent, for like 3-4 months. He paid, I think, I'm not going to give exact figures because I can't remember, but I know without Timothy's help, I would have lost the RV potentially, because I didn't have a place to park it and stay, and then police would come hassle you and end up confiscating it. So Timothy, more bang for your bucks, actually stepped in and covered my rent, for maybe about 3 or 4 whole months to buy me time. And that wasn't all. We had people like Kira Queen and even Elizabeth all contribute. And even before that, when I was living in the van, Charles, who I had a falling out with, did pay a lot. He spent probably $2,000 or $3,000 to keep Little Blue running. And of course, the mechanics who worked for, they weren't overcharging. They were charging for the parts and just a little bit for labor, like undercharging the rate to try to keep me going. So those were all the they weren't even all. I mean, there were other people who bought stuff like the fans, sent me $20 at a time, $30, $20, $15, $25 for things like a fan, a 12-volt fan, so I didn't get heat stroke living in the van in Florida. So many people contributed, okay? So anyhow, roughly a total of about $14,000-$15,000 went into that RV. And my intention had always been to pretty much give it away at the end, when I no longer needed it, and somebody needed it more. So that's where we're at right now. So I have the house. It is not fully done, but it's being worked on. The RV, I had contemplated turning it into a rental unit and renting it out to somebody for $600-$700, maybe $800. Rent around here for an RV is going for about $950 a month. If you don't have your own RV and you want to rent an RV in somebody's backyard, it's going for about $950. But I was thinking of renting out the RV for about $600-$700. That includes electricity and everything like that, and it would help offset some of my costs for them living there, and also allow me to try to save my money for my retirement here coming up very soon, where I don't want to just retire and sit. I want to travel and do things, so I need to have steady streams of income. So my wife and I had discussed potentially renting out the RV to somebody who needed it temporarily until they could get themselves reset, maybe $650, $700 a month, which is cheaper than you could get, about the same price as you can get a room, but in this case you get your own private little spot, and no background checks, none of that stuff. It's for somebody who's down and out, and they could just stay there for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, until they can get on their feet and get going. And of course, the price, I was going to make it flexible. If they didn't have a lot of money, I wasn't going to charge them that much. But, what I don't want is drama. I just went through more than 10 years of drama and crazy stuff, and, crazy neighbors, police, and all this other weird stuff. So that's one thing I don't really want. So fast forward to last week, okay? I've been working on the house. The RV has kind of fallen apart a little bit because it hasn't been used. The roof had leaked. I went in there and fixed the leak, but I didn't replace the panels and stuff that had gotten damaged. And the RV was a mess, from being used as storage and everything while I was working on the house and whatnot. So all my stuff was still in it and everything. But then last week, while I was working on the yard, cutting down some, more trees, I cut down another 2 trees around the house, and was working on the bushes, the snake grass, and all this stuff. Then this guy shows up in his truck. Okay, he shows up in his truck with his mother, and it's somebody I knew from when I lived at the RV scrapyard. And he comes out to me and says, "Hey, Denoy, you want to make some quick money?" And I says, "Nah, I don't really need it," because I knew it was something bad. So I don't really need it. And then he says, "We're looking for a place to stay. We got booted out of where we were staying, and now we're living in our car down by the lake. Been living out there, and they look all scraggly and stuff." Now his van, his truck actually has solar panels, and so he's kind of rigged it up with solar panels, inverter, and all that. So he knows how to do that. Okay. But the truck's kind of like, beat up and old and stuff, and his mother is like about my age, okay, but had a hard life. You can tell, like, people who had a hard life. Although sometimes I look in the mirror and I say, your life was kind of hard too. I guess it has to do with your attitude on life, and how you treat yourself and how you treat other people. But I think I'm okay for my age, although, body-wise I'm falling apart. But anyhow, let's get back on track to the story here. So the guy shows up and he says they need a place and they would like to rent my RV. And I'm like, I had just discussed it with my wife, and we don't really want to rent it out because we don't really want to deal with other people's hassles, because basically a person who would rent out the RV would probably be borderline homeless. But it's not just borderline homeless. They have all sorts of other issues, possibly law enforcement and mental issues, drug abuse and alcohol abuse. And not everyone is like that, when they're homeless and stuff. But the majority of people who do become homeless, it's like one event after another, and it gets to the point where they can't handle it, and they might be just on drugs or whatever, something bad. And they need more than one person to help them. They need a whole community, but the community often doesn't step up to help them. It leaves them in limbo. So he's like looking really desperate, and I'm looking at his mom, and then they have their dog with them and a cat. So there's the guy's probably in his 30s. His mom's in her mid to late 50s, and they got a dog and a cat. And I didn't know they had a cat. Didn't even know they had a dog. So, he came up to ask me if he could rent the RV. I said, we weren't really wanting to rent it out, but I'll ask my wife to talk about it. So I got his phone number, and then asked my wife what she thought. And, she's similar to me, my wife, maybe a little bit more practical than me, but in some ways maybe even kinder than me. So I talked to her and I explained to her, these were people I knew from the RV park, and they have some problems, but I think they're good people, and their situation. And then she said, I could do whatever I wanted, with the RV, if I will vouch for them, if I say that they're good people and they're not going to cause trouble and stuff, then she doesn't have a problem with them renting the RV in the backyard and staying there until they can get a place. So then I called the guy. Now this is just this was starting last weekend. So he came over on a Saturday or Sunday. Saturday. Yeah, it was Saturday. So I called him on Sunday morning. This was last week. Called him and say, hey, what's your situation and how long do you need the place? And he says, well, they've been living at the lake in their truck and they just need it until they can get an apartment or something. I said, okay, we'll do it on a trial basis and let you come over, and you can rent the place for about $600, okay, with utilities and everything, $600, $650 with everything included, water and electric and stuff. This is all going to go up. I conserve and I have solar power and stuff, so my water and electric bill is pretty much minimum. Electric sometimes goes a little bit higher because of air conditioning or heating, but for the most part, water and electric bill combined is probably about $60, $70 for me a month. But I know other people don't conserve, and these people, when they were living at the RV park, that whole place, not RV park, but at the scrapyard, nobody there conserved, and other than me, they were wasting water and electric and everything. So the bill, I'm sure, was astronomically high. Now, the problem when you have with renting stuff out is, people will damage things and break things. It's not theirs, they don't take care of it. And also, they might do things that upset you as a landlord. But I was like, well, they're homeless, and I know what it's like living in a car. He's in there with his mother. I'll try to deal with the inconvenience of having someone else living in my yard and using electricity and water and everything. So I called him up on Sunday to say, hey, what's the situation? We'll talk some more on this. He says, I'm on my way. So he comes over, and then I said, look, the RV's a mess. I need to clean it out. It's going to take a week or so for me to clean it out and get it ready. He says, oh, we need to move right now. We're out there and the police are knocking on our car and we're having all these problems. And I know what it's like living in a car and having people knock on your door, and you can end up losing your job or whatever. So I said to him, okay, look, the stuff's not ready. We'll move some of it out. We'll just try to get it out. And you guys can kind of move in and we'll adjust other stuff. We're going to need to get bins and all this stuff. And then, we'll go ahead and settle the deal. And then you can live here. We're going to do a trial basis of 3 months. And, if it doesn't work out, you're out. Because I don't need hassles. I don't want anything weird and all this other stuff that's going to affect my wife and I. So then, they said, well, can we move in right now? And I didn't really want them to, because I still had to clean stuff, personal stuff was in there, but they were kind of insistent. So I said, okay, because of their situation, saying they needed it, it was urgent. So I let them help move all the stuff out and everything. They start to move in and everything. Then they start to bring out their dog and cat. My wife's allergic to cats and dogs, really. And then, we just cleaned out the house that had 6 dogs that pooped and did all this stuff. So I told them right away, hey, you can't be here with the cat, especially. My wife will not be able to breathe. And she sneezes and wheezes and eyes go red and all that other stuff. The cat definitely has to go away. So he said, okay, he's got a place where he can take the cats. Or the cat. To his girlfriend's house or whatever. Which they can't stay at for some reason. Which I kind of understand why after you understand what's going on here. So I say, all right, and then the dog, you're going to have to, walk the dog around the street and, and then clean up their poo. Don't have it poop all over my yard or pee and poop all over the yard, because the yard will smell like dog poo and pee. And definitely don't have poop sticking out where my wife's trying to do her gardening and she's walking on dog poo. That's going to cause a problem. They say, all right, and then, I said, no drugs, none of this other weird stuff. No drinking, no drugs, all this. They don't do any of that. All right, good. Then they move in and everything, and then the mother says, well, she does dip. Is that okay? And I said, yeah, as long as you don't spit it everywhere. The tobacco dip. So then they move in, and I say, okay, so you guys are here. We're going to do about $650 a month. That includes everything. And so you're here for 2 weeks. I need you to cover these 2 weeks. He says, oh, we don't have any money yet. We're going to get the money on the 3rd of March. Okay, they've already moved in. And then he tells me he doesn't have any money yet. They'll have it on the 3rd. I'm like, do I boot him out? Okay, already there's been a miscommunication, or he's withholding information, waiting until I've cleared out the RV. I went out there and moved out a bunch of junk and moved it, and now my house has got shit everywhere. And, the house is a mess, basically. My patio that just got cleaned out has a bunch of crap all put out there that I need to sort through. That was removed from the RV. I'm like, all right. I'm going to go ahead and he says, we can help you out. We'll help you around the yard. I'll fix things. I can do all these. I said, all right, my chainsaw has, the bolt is stuck. So, that needs to be fixed. We'll get the chain back on there. And, what else? The dryer that I had bought, the used dryer has died. It's probably a bad switch or a bad fuse. The light comes on, but when you push the button, it doesn't spin. It had stopped in the middle of a spin. He says, yeah, I can fix that, no problem. I can do all this stuff. This is what the guy says, the son. All right, you can deal with all that. Okay? So, you guys can stay here on a trial basis, and we'll see how it goes. So they move in. I hook up the water. I have everything turned on. I get the AC running. I get all the stuff ready for them, and and offered to buy food for them and all that from the commissary. Of course, they don't want to give me any money for the food, and I'm like, I'll take it out of their rent. I'll use their rent money to cover expenses like water and electricity and food. I'll buy them some food. Not all the food, but like meat, expensive stuff, meat and eggs. So I'll get that for them for free. Well, not really free. I'm taking it from their rent money. So anyhow, they move in, and then, they just sort of don't do anything to help. And when they start to move in, they start breaking things, like the RV door, because they're using it, they're slamming it and stuff, and the door starts to break and fall apart off its, the panel and stuff starts to separate and whatnot. Remember, it's an old RV, and it hadn't been used in a while, so they're not exceptionally going out of their way to break things, but when you use things, especially if you're not careful, they break, okay? So they're starting to break things in the RV, and I'm like, oh my God, they're tearing up my RV. And they got the dog there, probably with fleas, okay? That RV is going to be trashed. So I'm starting to get a little bit upset, and I'm like, well, when I look back at the RV, even though I had put in about $4,500 and a lot of sweat equity into it, and other people sunk in more than $14,000 getting it fixed and keeping it to the state where we are right now. The majority of it was free, and people did it in the spirit of goodwill. So out of goodwill, even though these people aren't doing what they said they would do, like help around the yard, they did help when I went to mention it. I said, hey, can you help with this grass? But then they would only do it for a few minutes while I was there, and then as soon as I went away, they would stop. And then I had to remind them, hey, you told me you would work on this, But then I don't want to be a hard ass, and it isn't really a factor in them staying there, but it's annoying when you tell somebody, if I tell somebody something, my word is my word. If I tell them I'm going to help them with something or I'm going to do something, I do it. Like I did with Walter's house and stuff. I told him I would cut the tree down and get all that ready so he could sell the house, and he did. I keep my word. But other people evidently just say shit that don't mean. They just say whatever to get what they want. Then they just sit there and don't do what they said they would do unless you get on their case. So, I'm like, wow, I'm having to babysit them. Like they said they would help. I just asked them to do something simple, like help water the plants, my wife's plants, and remove some snake grass. It's a big tall weed up at the front of it. It's not weed, it's like a plant people pay for, but snakes love that stuff. And it was all at the front of the house, and I needed that area cleared. I was in the process of clearing it myself and cutting down the trees. So I asked if they could help with that. They said, yeah, they would get back on it, and and I would kind of have to keep an eye on it because it's still an ongoing thing. But anyhow, I said, look, you got the RV. After I talked to my wife about it, explaining the situation, how I was like, it was stressing me because I'm watching the RV kind of being broken apart. It's going to fall apart. And it's not necessarily that they're going out of their way to tear it apart. It's just an old system. And, people using it will break it. And they're going to pretty much make it useless. I'm not going to go in there and undo and try to spend thousands, tens of thousands of dollars more trying to fix it back up. And also the RV was given to me in the spirit of trying to help me get out of homelessness. So I talked to my wife about it, and we decided, hey, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and give them the RV free and clear. No money, no nothing for the RV. It's free. And, I'm going to go ahead and include everything in it, including the generator I bought, the solar panels, about 1,000 watts of solar panels, the 4 batteries, which are old, but they'll be included, and the charge controllers and everything else, the inverters, basically everything that was in good enough. I just need to get my personal stuff out of there. And I told them they could stay in the yard indefinitely as long as, they don't cause too much trouble for me and my wife. I'll let them stay there until they have enough money saved up and they can leave. That way they have a place to park the RV. And what I'll do is I'll charge them $650 a month. I'm not even charging them for those first 2 weeks. $650 a month to cover electricity and water, and I'll buy some food for them. That wasn't the agreement on the food, but I'm planning on using some of that money to buy them food from the base commissary where it's cheaper, for me to get stuff like meat and eggs. So I was going to do all that for them, okay, and give them all of that for free, and they could leave as soon as they were ready. They don't even have to stay any minimum number of months. Like if they were ready to leave right now, they could leave. But what I'll do is, he said, well, they won't be leaving right away. And I said, well, on the 3rd, you'll give me $650. And what I'll do is I'll put that on the title as a bill of sale, so that when you take it to go register, they only charge you $650 taxes on the RV, because the RV was selling it for $650, even though essentially I gave it to them for free. But that way they have legal paper to say they own the RV, they paid for it, they paid $650, and it's theirs, and they get it tagged. And they're also wanting to use the address because they don't have a mailing address or anything, and they need to get ID. And you know how it all goes. If you're homeless and you don't have ID, it causes a problem with trying to get a job. It causes a problem if you're trying to get anything with the state for any welfare type stuff, if you're trying to apply for things. We don't really want other people at our address, but we're going to have to do it. I mean, we don't have to, but I've decided to let them, although, that causes some legal issues, potentially. Anyhow, trying to help them out. So I'm going, leaning backwards to try to help. And meanwhile, each day I come back, stuff that they say they are going to help with isn't being done. Like cutting pulling the weeds, and I'm like, I don't want to talk to them about it, but I have to, because they're just sitting there. They're driving up the electric rate, my electric bill and water bill, and they're making me have to do way more work. Now keep in mind, while I'm dealing with all this, I'm also dealing with, I'll tell you another story, with my friend Bill, who's paralyzed and running out of money, becoming homeless very soon. So I'm stressing out. So the guy, finally, I asked him to see if he can look at the dryer. Okay, so he goes to look at it and says that he thinks it's my power panel where it drops into the building. I don't think it is. I told him I don't think it is. He says he's sure that's what it is. So he goes there and starts messing with the panels and everything, and he says, oh, that's not what it was. So I hope he doesn't mess up the power panel. Then now I'm out somewhere running around errands, helping Bill and whatnot, so I'm not able to be there to supervise all this. So then he says, okay, he'll go look at the dryer. So he takes it all apart, and then he says he can't figure out what's wrong. And then he thinks it's the motor. But now the washing machine's all apart. Okay? And then also he takes a look at the electric chainsaw that I bought, that I was using to cut the trees down. It had nothing wrong with it, but a stuck bolt. So he says, well, he can take it all, the bolt has a thing on the bottom, and you can't get to it unless you take it apart. And to take it apart, he cuts the whole thing apart and breaks it into pieces. Now it doesn't work at all. Okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here. Everything he says he's going to fix, he basically fixes it by making it totally broken and not usable, and more expensive to repair than it's worth. So I tell him, all right, listen. He says, well, do you have a gas saw? And I said, yeah, but I need to get the oil. You have to get that oil mix to put into the gasoline for a chainsaw. But I'm a little weary about letting him use that, because that's probably going to break. And then I tell him, go ahead and take the, you can either put the the dryer out front, the scrap metal people will come take it within a few minutes, you know. Or you could take it down there yourself and get the money, okay? And then, so he decides to take the dryer to the scrap yard, and he, you know, gets money for it. Then I get home, and he comes up to me and says, "Hey, do you have money to get the oil? As soon as you get the oil, I can use the chainsaw and start cutting stuff, you know, oil and gasoline and everything. I can use that to cut down the tree stumps and get to the weed and get the rest of this stuff done." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, you just took the dryer out to the scrapyard, got some money for it, and now you're asking me for like $5 for oil, motor oil, you know, the gas oil to add to the thing. I give him the $5, and you know, I get into the house, but then I'm like upset about the whole situation, because I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, somebody just gave you an RV that's worth at least $7,000, $6,000, $7,000, that has had more than $10,000, $15,000 sunk into it, and they're letting you stay for free, and they gave you a bunch of stuff to fix that you broke and all, and then they told you could scrap it and get money for it, and you get the money for it, but you still don't have the oil to get the other one working. I don't know how you guys would feel in that situation, okay? But I started getting annoyed. I was like, this is only going to get worse, I think. And, you know, and remember, prior to this, he had asked me for the keys for the RV. I gave him the keys to the RV because it's his. I gave it to him because I don't want to watch it get torn apart and get mad that he's tearing up my RV. By giving it to him, you know, I'm kind of paying it forward. And also, whatever he does to it, I don't care. As long as he doesn't break parts and leave it in my yard, okay? That when he leaves, he takes the RV with him. Doesn't just tear it up and then leave me trash in my yard, which is a thing that could happen. But I think he wants the RV. You know, it runs. It's in good shape. Comparable RV would probably sell for about $7,000, $6,500 or something like that. Maybe more, because it's got solar panels and everything with it, and a generator. So anyhow, I decide, even though, you know, it's not going to do any good, but I decide maybe I should teach him, you know, because he probably doesn't know that when somebody's being nice to you and stuff, and then they give you a thing to do like that, and a source where you can get the money, so maybe you could get the gas, and then when they come out, you tell them you haven't done anything, you need the money for the gas, when you just took something to go recycle that got you money, but you used it to buy tobacco dip or whatever instead of the oil. Your priorities are kind of screwed up, you know. Somebody's helping you, and you say you're going to help them, but you don't do it, and then you find every excuse not to, and then you say you don't have money, because when you had money, you didn't spend it on what you needed to do to get this job done. Yeah, and remember, I had gotten screwed by that other neighbor who took off with about, what is that, $1,500, because I paid for his utilities and water and stuff, and tools and supplies and stuff that he never got, okay? And some of you are like, man, Denoy, you're stupid. No, I'm trusting. But I'm starting to see maybe some people can't ever, you know, maybe a lot of people can't be trusted. But anyhow, I went out to talk to the guy, the son, and then he's saying he didn't take the money, it's his mom, and you know, it's not his fault, he didn't do anything wrong. He's real defensive. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even trying to blame him or anything. I'm trying to teach him that when people are reaching out to help you, you know, it might be good to show gratitude and then keep your word when you say you're going to help around the house and, you know, fix the yard or whatever, and do the things that you said you would do. But also, you know, you're nickel and diming me for oil when I just gave you something that gave you money, unless I explicitly told them to do that, which it looks like I have to do with these people. But even then, they don't do it. You know, you got to kind of go and stand there and supervise. So that's where we're at right now, and it's driving me nuts. And, you know, and I'm like, man, maybe I'm not as nice as I think I am. You know, maybe I'm an a-hole. But I'm trying to help people out, and they're causing a lot of stress for me right now. And maybe I'm just too picky. I don't know. But while that, you know, and it doesn't help that all that is going on, you know, I'm also dealing with my friend Bill. I've been having to go to the hospital a lot, having to take him to the cardiologist, and now we got to do a follow-up appointment. So I'm running to the doctors left and right, and I got to deal with my own health issues too. So like this next week, almost every day right after work, I have to go to a doctor, either take Bill somewhere or myself. And then the other issue is Bill is running out of money, and he's going to become homeless. He's paralyzed with a stroke, and I have to deal with that. So we'll talk about that in another episode, because I'm going to ask for your help. what your advice is, and what, you know, because I'm basically out of time with Bill, and I got to get him into a house. And I'll do an episode on that, and we'll talk about it. But in the meanwhile, tell me what you think about the situation with the homeless people that I have in my backyard. My goal is to try to let them stay there as long as possible, and so they can build money up, and then they can leave, and that the RV will be their home, so they will have a place. But you know, with the way things are going, I'm like hoping that I didn't just create a lot more drama for myself, because I really am spread out really thin right now. Let me know your thoughts. Until next time, everyone, take care. God bless you all. Stay safe. Bye-bye now.